Have you ever felt like your heart was too heavy to carry, like a part of you was missing, but the world was expecting you to move on? If you've lost a loved one, a pet, or something deeply meaningful, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what if I told you that grief isn't something to get over? It's something to understand, embrace, and heal through. Hello, guys, welcome to Moments of Magic. This is the first part of a two-part series on grief. In this video, we're going to truly understand grief, why it feels so overwhelming. In this video, we're also going to explore grief from three different perspectives: neurological, psychological, and spiritual. Because I truly believe healing looks different for everyone. My hope is that no matter where you are in your journey, you'll find something in this video that resonates with you and helps you move towards healing and peace. And at the very end, I'll also be sharing my personal experience with grief, how I suppressed my emotions after losing my father, how it affected my body and mind, and healing journey that finally set me free. So stay with me until the very end of the two videos because this might change how you see grief forever. So, what is grief and why does it feel so overwhelming? Let's talk about the neuroscientific perspective. According to neuroscience, grief isn't just an emotional experience, it's deeply biological. It affects our brain, nervous system, and even our body at a cellular level. According to neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, grief is a yearning or desire to have something that is no longer there. Grief isn't just about sadness, it is a state of intense craving. According to fMRI brain scans, the same neural circuits that activate when we crave something are also activated during grief. Imagine this: you're incredibly thirsty and there's a clean glass of water right in front of you. You desperately want to reach for it, but every time you stretch out your hand, the glass moves just a little further away, just beyond your reach. When we form strong emotional bonds, the dopamine system helps maintain those relationships by keeping us in a state of anticipation and desire. We don't just love someone in the present, we actively expect to see them again, to talk to them again, to share new experiences with them again. This anticipatory state is why we wait for a message from a loved one, look forward to a meeting with them, or even just assume they will always be part of our daily world. This is also called as a motivational state and is driven by the hormone dopamine. Our relationships are stored in the brain in a three-dimensional framework. Time. When did we last see them? When were we expecting to see them again? Space. Where are they? Proximity. How close or far away are they from us? These three factors create a mental map of our relationships. This creates an episodic memory in our brain. Our attachments are linked to this episodic memory, which in turn slowly creates an extensive database of experiences we've shared with this person or pet. I'll give you some examples. I drive home from work at 6 pm. When I come home, my husband is there before me. He opens the door when I ring the bell. At 8 pm, we have dinner together on our dining table. Every Saturday, we go to the downtown restaurant to have dinner. When I wake up in the morning, I see him beside me on my bed. So time are 6 pm, 8 pm, Saturday, and every morning. Space is at the door, dining table, bed, and the specific restaurant that we go to. And proximity is right beside me or across the table, etc. For example, when it comes to pets, you come home from work at 6 pm and they are crazy excited to see you and give you loads of unconditional love. You take them for a walk at 7 pm in the park near your house. They eat dinner at 6 pm in the dining room and they sleep in their bed next to your bed in the bedroom. So here time are 7 p.m., 6 p.m. and bedtime, and space is park, dining room, bedroom, and proximity is very near you. Try to really understand this, guys, because when we come to the part where we talk about tools for healing, this will all make sense. Andrew Huberman also talks about the 3 types of brain cells that are important when it comes to grief. These are place cells. Place cells fire when you enter a room or location where they used to be. Proximity cells. These map the proximity to your loved ones, like you usually know where they must be or where you can find them. And the most important are the ones that causes the most amount of pain, the trace cells. These cells fire or get activated when we expect someone or something to be at a given location, but it's not there. These trace cells become very active when you lose someone. It is a constant reminder that the person or pet is not there at the particular time or location that you're expecting them to be. Places and things that brought us joy and laughter now bring us intense sadness. Coming to the hormones involved. To be honest, in recent times I've realized that hormones control way too much when it comes to how we feel, so balancing hormones is very important. The main hormones involved during grieving and bereavement are dopamine, the main culprit, puts us in a desiring and seeking state where we are waiting for something to happen. This is also true for addiction. So dopamine keeps us in a state of wanting more and more. But when you find that the person or pet that you desire to have proximity to is not there, the trace cells start firing and you start feeling bad. So then, more dopamine is released, leaving you in a state of desperation and extreme yearning and seeking. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is the love hormone. The more oxytocin someone has, the more yearning and desire you feel to see the person or pet again. So please, guys, have compassion for someone who is having a hard time moving on. They might just have more oxytocin. Or, for that matter, for someone who moves through grief faster, it's not really their fault. Anyways, we never really know how other people feel. There is no clear way of knowing that. I'm not saying that oxytocin is the only reason why people grieve the way they do. Of course, there's lots more factors to it. Cortisol and adrenaline. People who are more alert and aroused at baseline. People who have a lot of circulating cortisol and adrenaline have a higher chance of feeling prolonged or complicated grief symptoms. Cortisol is the hormone that is released when you are stressed. This hormone should be highest in the morning and then should start reducing by 4 pm, and at around 9 pm it should be at significantly lower circulating level in your body. So basically, start controlling your body cortisol levels on a regular basis. This will help your body regenerate and repair while it's sleeping and also give you more mental strength to deal with adverse life situations. Understanding these concepts will help you figure out the best tool for you to heal and find peace. Most of us who have been going through grief and have been struggling must have heard about the 5 stages of grief. Let's talk about that. These 5 stages of grief were described by psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The first stage is denial, a state of disbelief and shock. The mind refuses to accept reality. It feels like this cannot be happening. The second stage is anger, the realization that the person is gone. But the brain shifts into a motivational state of protest, leading to feelings of frustration, rage, or resentment. The third stage is bargaining. The brain tries to negotiate with reality, often filled with what ifs and if only I had done this, if only I had done that kind of thoughts. Some people avoid thinking about loss, hoping that ignoring it might make it less real. The fourth stage is depression, a deep sadness sometimes accompanied by feelings of hopelessness. The fifth stage is acceptance, the realization that while the pain is still there, life will continue. There is an understanding that in time healing is possible. Everything is going to be okay. However, not everyone moves through all these stages, and those who do rarely experience them in a neat linear order. Some people skip stages, others revisit them multiple times, and many feel stuck in one stage longer than the others. Huberman emphasizes that, like any biologic process, grief has a beginning, middle, and end. The early stage is raw and disorienting. The middle stage involves oscillating between sadness and brief moments of relief. And the final stage isn't about moving on, but about forming new neural connections that allow us to function without the overwhelming pain. The good news? Just as the brain adapts to cravings, it also adapts to loss. With time, self-compassion, and the right tools, the pain lessens. Not because we forget, but because our brain finds new ways to carry the love we had for the person or pet into new chapters of our lives. There are two types of grief: non-complicated or adaptive grief, and complicated or prolonged grief. Non-complicated grief follows a natural trajectory, gradually decreasing in intensity over time as the brain adapts. Complicated grief is when the grieving process remains unresolved, causing persistent distress that can interfere with daily life. The idea that a person or animal does not exist anymore is not something the brain can conceptualize. The brain tends to rely more on experience than knowledge, emotionally hard to undo. For most people, grief follows a natural process. Intense at first, but gradually softening over time as the brain remaps its attachment. However, for some, grief remains unresolved and becomes a prolonged disruptive state known as complicated grief. When grief doesn't heal naturally, it demands immense energy from the body, disrupting both mental and physical health. Scientists have found that prolonged grief can trigger biological stress responses that damage the body's ability to repair itself and weaken the immune system, making people more susceptible to illness. I do want to let you know, guys, that it takes a trained professional to identify complicated grief. It is a very complex problem. So if you do have access to trained professionals, please seek out help. Some of the signs and symptoms of complicated grief are tightness in chest, a physical sensation that mimics anxiety or heartache, increased blood pressure. The body remains in a stress response state for extended periods of time. Broken heart syndrome, where intense emotional distress can weaken heart muscles. Surging stress hormones, high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, leading to fatigue, tension, and restlessness. There can be extreme focus on reminders of loss, like being unable to think about anything else or being constantly stuck in grief, or excessive avoidance of loss, avoiding places, people, or conversations related to the loss to an extreme degree. For example, you may keep yourself overly busy to avoid thinking about your loss. Your body starts showing signs like weight gain or weight loss, muscle tension, or unexplained aches. You feel numb instead of sad. You basically don't allow yourself to think about it. You get easily irritated, anxious, or feel constant sense of impending doom. You also have difficulty remembering or talking about the person you lost. This is actually something that I went through. It indeed is very hard and painful. Do stay till the very end of this series, where I will discuss my experience with grief and share how I found peace. Avoidance requires a lot of energy, and hence it depletes your health in long term. Chronic grief can raise inflammation levels, contributing to disease, and the body's ability to fight infection declines, leading to frequent illness. This is why prolonged unresolved grief needs attention and care. If grief is affecting your ability to function or causing long-term distress, it will be helpful to seek support from therapy, counseling, or healing practices that help reprocess the loss in a healthy way. Coming to the psychological or emotional perspective, grief as an emotional process is a deeply personal and transformative journey. It is not just about sadness, it is a storm of emotions that come in unpredictable waves. Here's how it unfolds emotionally. Number 1 is the initial shock, numbness, and disbelief. The moment we experience a significant loss, our emotional system shuts down to protect us from the overwhelming pain. This can feel like emotional numbness, disbelief, confusion, or even detachment from reality. Some people describe it as being in a fog, where everything feels surreal, like life is happening in slow motion. Once the numbness fades, emotions flood in like a tsunami, often in unpredictable ways. You may feel emotions like sadness and loneliness. A deep, aching emptiness sets in. There's a sense of longing for what was lost. Guilt or regret. The mind replays what ifs, questioning what could you have done differently. Anger. There can be anger at oneself, others, God, or even the person who is gone. You must have heard people say like, why did he leave me? Anxiety or fear. The loss shakes the foundation of safety and security, making the future feel uncertain. Despair and hopelessness. A period of darkness where it feels like life will never be the same again. The emotional roller coaster. Grief doesn't follow a straight line. One moment you feel okay, the next, a song, a smell, or a memory triggers a sudden wave of sorrow. Some days you might feel like you are healing, only to be pulled back into sadness the next day. It is exhausting because emotions come and go without warning. Then comes the search for meaning, reflection, and growth. Over time, the emotional turmoil starts shifting into deeper reflection. The mind begins to reconstruct meaning, asking existential questions like, why did this happen? What does this loss mean in life? How do I move forward? Then comes the slow path of acceptance, carrying the love, not just the loss. Acceptance doesn't mean forgetting, it means integrating the loss into life in a way that allows healing. The emotions don't disappear, but they become softer, less overwhelming. Instead of only feeling pain when thinking of the lost one, there are moments of gratitude and warmth. The love remains, but the suffering shifts into something more peaceful. Grief never fully ends, but it changes. Grief is not something we get over, it's something we learn to carry. Over time, it becomes woven into who we are, shaping our perspective, deepening our empathy, and making us more human. Emotionally, grief is not just about mourning what we lost. It is also about learning how to love in absence, how to heal while still hurting, and how to find meaning in pain. Finally, let's talk about the spiritual perspective. Here we will be talking about spiritual concepts from Hinduism. In Hinduism, grief and death are deeply interconnected with the cycle of life, karma, and the soul's journey. Ancient scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and the Garuda Purana provide profound insights into the nature of grief, death, and how to navigate loss. Grief is a natural response to loss. Hindu philosophy emphasizes transcending grief through wisdom and spiritual understanding. According to the Bhagavad Gita, grief arises from attachment and the illusion of permanence in a transient world, when in reality, the only thing that is permanent is change. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna consoles Arjuna, who is grieving the potential loss of his loved ones in a battle. Lord Krishna says, "Weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and wind cannot dry it." Just as a person discards old clothes and wears new ones, the soul discards a worn-out body and takes a new one. These verses remind us that grief arises because we mistakenly identify ourselves and our loved ones with the body rather than the eternal soul, Atman, which is never destroyed. Krishna also says, "The soul is neither born nor it dies. It is eternal, never destroyed when the body perishes." You grieve for those who should not be grieved for. The wise do not mourn for the living or dead. Krishna's message is clear. Grief stems from identifying ourselves and others solely as bodies. Hinduism teaches us that our souls take birth on earth to learn a lesson and evolve spiritually. Life is a temporary journey. Our true home is not this physical world, but in the higher spiritual realms. The Purana and the Upanishads emphasize that every soul comes into a body with a karmic blueprint, certain lessons, experiences, and challenges that help it grow. According to the Garuda, an ancient Indian scripture, the soul undergoes various stages after death. It remains near the body for 10 to 13 days. It experiences the consequences of its past actions in Yama's realm. After 11 months, it is judged and moves towards its next birth based on karma. This perspective helps in dealing with grief by reminding us that our loved ones are not lost, but are on their spiritual journey. This means that our experiences, including grief, are part of divine plan meant to teach us patience, love, detachment, and resilience. The ultimate goal of every soul is not endless rebirth, but to break free from the cycle of reincarnation and return to its divine home. It is taught in the Sanatana Dharma that the material world is temporary and it is an illusion, while the real eternal world exists beyond birth and death. The Bhagavad Gita says, "There is a divine abode beyond the sun and the moon, where once reaching, the soul never returns to the mortal world." This higher realm is often called Vaikuntha, Kailasha, or Brahmaloka, depending on different Hindu philosophies. When a soul has learned all its lessons and achieved self-realization, it returns to its divine home, merging with the pure consciousness. Grief can feel like a storm that never ends. But I want you to know you are not alone in this. Your pain is real, your love is real, and healing is possible. It doesn't mean forgetting, it doesn't mean moving on. It means finding a way to carry their love forward without carrying the weight of suffering forever. Guys, this is just the first part of this conversation. In part 2, we'll talk about the real tangible steps you can take to heal. I'll share powerful tools, practices, and ways to reconnect with love and peace. So please don't stop here. Watch the next video because I truly believe it could help you find the light again. Wherever you are in your journey, I see you and I'm sending you love. Take your time, and when you're ready, I'll see you in part 2. Let's build a community of support where grief is not hidden but embraced. If you have a story about grief, drop it in the comments below. Let's talk about it and heal together. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This will help our channel reach more people who need healing and support. Remember, Love never dies, it just changes form. And you, my friend, are never alone, sending you love, healing, and light. See you in the next video.